also interesting. But thanks.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for this special lecture. We're delighted to have Professor Kerstin Liden from the University of Stockholm here, Professor of Archaeological Science, who will be very well known to you for her work on interactions between humans and the environment, whether through mobility or diet or ancestry or many other aspects. Her work spans a very broad time periods, but today she's going to be looking at the tumultuous migration period in Sweden, and to tell us about her new project, looking at the enigmatic ring faults of Erna. So thank you very much. Thank you
for that introduction, and thank you for inviting me, and a special thanks to John, who I know is behind this invitation. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this new project. So where do I just enter here now?
Yes, you can just either do. It's probably
okay. Okay. So the name of this program is called Crisis, Climate and Conflict: Societal Change 300 to 700 CE, and it's financed by the Swedish Riksbank Jubileumsfond, and they want the name in Swedish. So I'm sorry, it's going to be like that. So, but as you know, you never walk alone. So this project comprises a lot of people, and some of them you might know. You can see Lena Holmqvist, for instance, and you can see Anders Göterström and Helena Victor up to the right, and Heike Fallgren and Sven Kamring might be familiar to some of you, etc., etc. So lots of people involved in this project. And we also have an international advisory board, of which John is part, and also Manuel, who will be coming later. And they all have their specialities, and that's why they're part of this project. We focus on the year 300 to 700 CE. And just to get introduction, the periods that we are working on in the Scandinavian or in Swedish perspective, we call 0 to 400, we call the Roman Iron Age, the migration period, 400 to 550, the Vendel period, named after the famous boat burials up in north of Stockholm, 550 to 750, and we don't do the Viking Age. I just want to point out, this has nothing to do with the Vikings. And these are turbulent times, and the Germanic tribes on the move. And we have this famous invasion by the Huns. There are Danish weapon sacrifices in bogs around 200, 500. The fall of the Western Rome, there are climatic events, and we have the Justinian plague. A lot of things happening, and we have this. We have these three words: crisis, conflict, and climate. And climate we have there because during this time period there is a particular climatic event that you all know of course. And we're not saying that the climate is a determining factor for things that are happening during this time, but it actually might be the final turning point for things to happen. So we just have it there because it's inevitable to have it in there. And there are a lot of records on this, of course, and you can see the migration period marked there. And from this, why do we know that there was this climatic event? We have lots of records, but among them we have written sources dating to this period. For instance, Procopius, John of Ephesus, who tells us that something happened, and it was with the fruits and other things. We also have Chinese sources, so we know that the whole northern hemisphere was affected by this. And we also have Nordic sagas talking about this. And this is interesting because this has also been connected to particularly this last year in Iceland. Those winters should receive 3 in succession and no summer between, but first shall come 3 other winters, such that overall the world there should be mighty battles. So it's a matter of not only problems with farming, but also that there should be some kind of conflicts. And we also have natural records of this, and this is an example of a tree ring with frost bites. You can see frost bites here, and we find these at certain places, particularly up north. that can be dated, of course, with high accuracy, as you can do with tree rings. So everyone talks about the climate catastrophe, and then the issue is what's caused it, of course, and then it turns out that it's probably most likely a number of volcanic eruptions that occur 536, 542, and maybe more. And from this, then this event is called the dust wave event, late antique little ice age, or in Swedish Fimbulvinter, or as Bo Gräslund, professor in archaeology in Uppsala, framed it, Fimbul summer, because it's not the winters that are a problem for people living up north. It's rather the summers, so it should be called Fimbul summer. The Justinian plague is also an issue. And what is the push effect, and what is the driver for the Justinian plague? It could be that people are suffering from malnutrition or whatever, but at this time we know it occurs. And so we have to take that into account, but there may be also other diseases that we should consider from this. So the purpose of this program is then to study a period of crisis, conflict, and climate change in Scandinavia, 300 to 700 CE. And we use the island of Öland, I'll show you a map soon, as a model area. And we want to put the societies on Öland into an international perspective to study one of the more prominent, and we studied one of the more prominent Iron Age monuments in Öland, the ring forts, and their contemporary societies. So we would like to present a high-resolution study of the societies behind the buildings, behind the building, use, and abandoning of these ring forts. So where are we? This is Scandinavia, Sweden, and this is Öland, one of the Baltic islands. The British Balkans and Öland, Gotland, and Särna and Hiiumaa. And they are sort of mirrors of each other when it comes to geology. And these are, all these dots and names represents a ring fort on Öland. So, and this is the time period. This is also called Öland's Golden Age, because at this time, there are lots of finds of, for instance, this snake are rings that are found as sacrifices in one of the major sacrificial bogs on northern Öland, Skedimosse. We have lots of brackets. We have the highest number of solidi in Scandinavia are found on this island. And we also have these golden collars that are most likely made in Scandinavia. Just so you can see how well they're done. And of course, some trees are something that connects to Sutton Hoo. Everyone knows of it, right? They're from beyond that. So more specific questions in this project is, were the people who built the forts and houses local to Öland, and were there locals from Öland who returned to the forts when they were once abandoned? What were the forts used for? We're not sure about what they were used for. Traditionally, they were sought as military arrangements and as for protection. Then there are lots of other ideas of that they could have been used for other things. Marketplaces, ritual places, and also that they might have changed function over time. Why were they abandoned, and why were some of them reoccupied and not all? And how does all this relate to this specific climatic event? Were conflicts the reason for the abandonment, and were they then internal or external? What economy enabled the building of the forts and the stone ground houses? So what do they look like, and what do we know, or what did we know about the forts prior to this program started? Well, they're called ring forts, obviously, because most of them are ring formed. Not all of them are perfect rings. Not this just half a circle, and this is just half a circle because this is positioned the place at the highest spot of Öland, which is actually a very, very flat island. And right here, there is a sort of an escarpment, so there is a drop of maybe 20 meters here. So that's one of the reasons why you feel it's on the half circle here. And then we have this little picture here. Triaby is 3 villages, and it consists of 3 circles put together. And you might think that since they've been there and so well preserved and they're very obviously in the landscape, you would think that most people that they have been excavated. But if you look at the portion of excavated, how much they have been excavated, you can see that only Eketorp has been excavated almost completely. 90% of the Eketorp on the forts have been excavated completely. And then the most famous nowadays, the most famous fort, Sandbyborg, only less than 10% of Sandbyborg. You can also see that they're situated almost all over Öland, more in the southern part than in the northern part. And some of them have question marks because we don't know, or we didn't know if they were actually forts. Now we know that it's not the fort. Having done inventories there, for instance. Also, that there are too many forts in order to be sort of situated or distributed evenly on Öland. So Lensta and Norra Bäckleby, we will come back to them and discuss what we think about them. So Eketorpsborg, going back, Eketorpsborg is the southernmost ring fort on Öland, and it's been excavated. 90% has been excavated, and it has become more or less a model for all the ring forts on Öland. And it was excavated by Mårten Stenberg, who's a professor in Uppsala, in archaeology in Uppsala. And he was only interested in the migration period of this fort. So they quite rapidly took away all medieval remains from this fort. And it took quite a while before they actually published the medieval periods in this fort. So it has been divided in 3 phases, 1, 2, and 3, where 2 is the migration phase. And you can see how the houses look like. They're laid out perpendicular around the wall, which is here. And then there are some houses in the middle as well. And they're all made of the calcareous limestone that is found very easily in this area. And this is the reconstruction that was made afterwards. And you can see half the fort is reconstructed according to the migration period, and half the fort is reconstructed according to the medieval phase. And on this picture, you can also see how extremely flat design of this. You can see the Baltic Sea on that side. And if you stood here, you could see the Baltic Sea on that side as well. And this landscape is also very particular. It's called Alvar, and it's this open because it's braced continuously. So it's a UNESCO World Heritage site as it is now. So what do we do when we survey these sites? We do georadar surveys together with GeoMalum. Sweden is world leading in developing these antennas for GPS surveys. And this is outside Sandbyborg, the most famous fort that is situated on the beach, more or less. We also do excavations. We do a lot of radiocarbon datings. We do typological dating for a particular reason that I will come back to. And this is an example of one of the brooches that was found in Sandbyborg. We tried to look into the demography. The period is called migration period. Migration because a lot of the stone ground houses on Öland are deserted at this time. And we don't know why they were deserted. That's one of the things that we want to find out. And so we do that by performing a lot of radiocarbon datings. We also look into the cemeteries. There are a lot of cemeteries from the Iron Age on Öland. And they are, if there are no radiocarbon dates from these cemeteries, they're dated by the morphology of the graves. And by that, we can see that during the Roman Iron Age, there are quite a lot of cemeteries. And then when we come into the end of the migration period and the Wende period, they sort of disappear. And then again, they come back during the Viking Age. But we don't know much about the actual dating of these cemeteries. So we are going to start to date a lot of cremated bones. But then again, check carefully that they are cremated at high enough temperature, etc., to be sure about the datings. We still have a problem with the radiocarbon dating curve at this time because we have a plateau, so it's still a problem. We do ancient DNA on all these individuals that we sample, and we look for both human and microbial DNA. And we also perform stabilized stock analysis on this to study what they've been eating and also to be able to correct for any reservoir effects in the data. We also collect a lot of soil samples from this island to look at activity areas. And so now we are actually done all the soil sampling, and we do that preferably during the winter because it's very easy to walk in the landscape during that time. And use a large number of different elements to look at these activity areas. We also do archaeobotany, tedious work. Just circle the cereals so you can see them, because there are a lot of charred carbonized cereals found in these forts and also in the settlements connected to them. And we can say a lot about the farming activities by that. We perform landscape analysis, and particularly we do high resolution LiDAR on these areas, in these areas, and we look at climate data, of course, for this particular. And we also do osteological analysis, and this is a dog puppy found in the Fort Sandbyborg, a complete skeleton. And there have also been earlier excavations performed in some of the forts, and this is an example from the Andréns excavation in 1997 and 2001, where he was excavating in Ismantorp, in the middle here. You can see here, and here it's quite obvious. You can see all the house remains, and there are also several different phases in Ismantorp. And he was excavating in the middle here, and he excavated a very, very large post hole, and he interpreted this fort in a very ritual context with its 9 gates in here and this big tree in the middle. And he was at that time involved in a project, or a leading project, called Vägar till Midgård, Roads to Midgård, and where they were looking at Old Norse cosmology that changed during this time period. So overall, this is what the project is about. We are studying humans, their material culture, their environment, and by that we want to get a grip of the society and how that changed or did not change, and look at the eventual resilience to any changes in terms of climate crisis and climate change. So to analyze this, we use these different methods for the different part of this sport, actually. Yeah, that's what we do. We also do perform a lot of research communication, and particularly the Sandbyborg fort has got a lot of attention because of this massacre of individuals. I'll come back to that. That were killed in this fort, left to rot, and we're just left there, and eventually were found more or less by coincidence. And it's people write children's books about this. There are publications, research publications. There are a lot of reenactments going on, and there are a lot of schools involved in this. It actually takes a lot of attention from the project. We have to take it down more or less. So, and before we started this project, there were some geo-radar analysis performed at some of the forts, and here is one from Vårbyborg, situated here on the west coast, and you can see the pattern of the houses. That this is the interpretation of the geo-radar reflections, and in this interpretation, all the black lines here would then represent migration age houses, whereas the blue houses then in this interpretation would be medieval houses. Also, the most recently found fort, Sandbyborg, has been surveyed with geo-radar, and of course then also Sandbyborg. And this was the reason why this massacre came to be known. At that time, PhD student Andreas Wiberg was going to do a survey of this fort, And you can see it's situated just by the shore. This Sandborg, it's the only fort that sits by the shore like this. It has 3 entrances, looks very similar to Eketorp, has exactly the same number of houses as Eketorp, and they also distributed in the same way. And when they were doing the georadar survey, they could see that there have been looting in the fort. People with metal detectors have been walking around, and there were lots of pits there where they so there were like survey excavations taking place, and then they found the remains of treasures that the looters hadn't found, and then so the project started. And then when they were excavating one of these houses here, the first that they saw was a pair of feet from an adult man sticking out of that door. And then they realized there's something special going on here. So here you can see the fort situated by the Baltic. These are modern stone fencing. And now the natural regulation in Sweden says that you cannot move these walls because they're inhabited by snakes and other animals. And even if, the Swedish king has a summer house on Öland, and he wanted, I can pay for the removal of this, just take it away. But no, he cannot do that. So it has to be there. So it's still in there. But this is otherwise the fort, and this is what they look like, the remains of the walls. So you can see some more proper remains of the wall. This is a modern well. It has nothing to do with the original fort. This, however, is rather interesting because all these rocks have been put there on purpose. And the interpretation of why they are there, we don't know. Some say it's a protection against an attack on horseback. We don't know. This is what it looks like. And this is sort of an interpretation of what the fort could have looked like. And here you can see the human remains still in situ. And this is from one of the houses. You can see also how these houses are built with these limestone rocks situated in them. And here also brooches. And this is just a reconstruction of this the chief that was in charge. He was lying over the hearth, killed in his own building, and he had a coin in his mouth. These are some of the finds, and the interesting thing here is that the treasures in these houses were all. If you enter the house like this, to the right there was a pit, and there where all the treasures were buried. And the looters didn't find them. So you can see here are treasures that we find. And these are symbols of one individual, skeletal remains of one individual. And maybe you remember the bead from the cover of Antiquity. That was the bead. So there were a lot of people killed in there. And a lot of them had signs of trauma. And the wounds were clearly concentrated to the head and the upper part of the body. And there are no traces of defense wounds on these individuals. So overall, less than 10% of this fort is excavated. And only these 10% still 29 to 32 individuals, 11 children, only 1 female, 9 showed sharp, blunt or penetrating trauma, evidence of this. And all in all, it has been interpreted as evidence of a massacre. And the thing is then, who were these people who were killed and who killed them? And this is what the discussion is about. And we said we do a lot of typological dating, and these are finds from close context, and they can typologically be dated to the migration period, even though these might be antiquities when they're found in the fort. But there are also single finds, because this massacre has been sometimes been called a moment frozen in time. I think that there was one paper called that had a moment frozen in time. But it's not completely frozen, because this roach is dated to the Wendel period. So people have been there after this massacre. Another interesting thing is that nowadays, as you can see, it's situated on the beach. It's a very lovely place to be in the summer when the sun is up, etc., etc. People having their picnics there, people getting married there. And then all of a sudden, this massacre was discovered and totally changed the idea of this place, sort of. Okay, so, but then we also have a lot of radiocarbon dates from this fort. So what we've done then is to radiocarbon date a lot of different things, plant microfossils, human collagen and faunal collagen. And then what I said previously is that we have this problematic plateau here in the calibration curve, the migration plateau. So but anyhow, using all the information and all the different tweaking you can do, this is what it looks like. So it seems as if the massacre took place around 500. And if you remember, the eruptions were 536, 541, so it doesn't fit exactly with the climatic events. And then we also have isotopic data of barley from these sites, from several sites on Öland. And we have elevated nitrogen values that indicate fertilization that has to be taken into account when we do the dietary reconstructions. And we try to do life history analysis on as many individuals as we can to see if they change their diet over life. And we also do strontium isotope analysis on these individuals, on all the individuals that have left. And by that we can see that 50% were non-local, 60% not born in Öland but have lived there, and only one individual had never been out of Öland, and that's individual 9. And interesting with that individual is that that was the chief that had fell over the hearth in one of the houses. So it's quite good to do strontium isotope analysis, considering the bedrock that is very, very different from mainland Sweden. And this is just an example of how we do our ice escapes, and we have done several analysis of small rodents temporary to the fort. So these are the individuals that have been analyzed so far, and these are the results. And you can see that, and this is the local ice escape for Öland, and you can see that there are some that are outside Öland, but most of them are inside. And this is, if we look individually at each of these, this is what it looks like. This is also the what it looks like when we've done this laser ablation ICP-MS on them. And this is in the chief. So born on Öland, etc. And then we do ADNA, and for Sandbyborg, the DNA analysis have been performed, and it turns out that all of the individuals originate from Scandinavia, not surprisingly. Only one individual could be confirmed to be female, and also that there are actually some individuals that have been identified with certain diseases, not Yersinia pestis, but leprosy. Not yet published, but it will be published within soon. We also look into the settlements outside the forts. So I'm not going to talk about Sandbyborg now, but rather Skogsby, where we also perform excavation. Here you can see how the houses built in a very similar way as the houses in the forts, suggesting that there was the same people who built the houses outside the fort as inside the fort. So maybe the same people using the fort, meaning also that they didn't live all year round in the forts, but they had some other activities. However, there's also some differences between northern and southern Öland. And in southern Öland, they have access to all these limestone rocks, which they don't on the northern part of Öland. Here they build their houses with these enormous rocks that looks very, very different. And this is a reconstruction of an Iron Age farm on Northern Öland called Skeppsberg. This is the reconstruction. They had built the original reconstruction here that burned down. That's why there were burnt post holes here, and then they put up another reconstruction there. So these houses look very different in terms of the building material from southern. I also said that there are some of the forts in the center of Öland that was a bit different. And this is Leonstad, one of the forts that we started to excavate. And it has sort of one central ring and then an enlargement. But when we excavated, we couldn't find any remains of houses. We found this, remains of a small hearth. And when we radiocarbon dated a serial grain from that, it turned out to be Roman Iron Age. So it's older than the other ones. When we look at the walls of this, they're much smaller. And this fort is situated in an area where you have access to these limestone slabs, but it's not built of limestone slabs. It's built of small pebbles. So now I have this idea that maybe these have had another purpose. They were built during another time. And on this island, cattle and sheep roam around freely. But at one time, you have to gather them to sort out this belongs to this farm, this belongs to this farm. And this is a similar system that they have for the horses in Iceland, and they have for the reindeers in northern Sweden. So this might actually be something completely different. And that would also explain why they are so grouped together in central Öland. And so how would we find this out? Well, I was thinking of maybe using copper stannols to look, because if they're gathered in there, they produce a lot of pieces. So maybe look at remains of copper stannols inside and compare it to the outside. We'll see. This is also a picture of the drones that we're using to get the high resolution drone images in collaboration with the Polish colleagues. So we have produced LiDAR images of all the forts that we have. And this is Isman Fort, the one that Anders Andrén was excavated. And here you can also see the hollow roads going into this fort. And also the cemetery next to it. Not this coming week, but the week after, we're going to excavate in Sörbyborg, this fort up here. And if this really is a fort, we don't know that. That's what we're going to find out when we're excavating. Georadar reflections have been interpreted as houses in this area and this area. If it is a fort, then it would be the largest fort on Öland. I doubt it is a fort. I don't say that I have it because it's situated as on an island in the bog, and the bog is Skede Mosse, the most important sacrificial bog on Öland, where they have sacrificed horses, humans, and other animals, and also where they found all these snake arm rings, golden arm rings, for instance. I think that this has been used for something completely different. Horses were important on Öland, and we think that they might have had horse races in this area instead. We sometimes use historic sources also before our excavations, and in this case, we have some historic notions from no less than Carl von Linné, actually, because he was traveling around in Sweden, and on his Landic journey, he made these small notes about the Krebiborg fort. And there are several of these, and some are very schematic. As you can see, they're almost like sliced oranges. And this is the oldest one we have, and it goes back to the 17th century by Vesalius. And you can see that their house remains in all the different circles. And Mode Stenberger, who wrote a PhD thesis on the forts on Öland, he made this drawing from this Krebiborg that is situated here, just north of Eketorp. So there are clearly 3 different circles, and they are covered also by modern stone fences. In the 18th century, a farm was built inside one of these circles, probably destroying all the remains of the migration period houses in that. And this is an aerial picture, what it looks like now. And here you see the modern stone fences, disturbing the whole issue, and also the modern stone setting for the barn in the modern part. And this is the LiDAR data. You can see here, you can clearly see the house remains. You can also see that the farmer has plowed the field from here until exactly here where the cemetery starts. So he probably removed a lot of burials during that activity. This house, there was one house that was excavated already in 1964. That was when they were excavating in Eketorp. And it was excavated by a female, Birgitta Skarin Flytman, and she was not allowed to remain at the excavation in Eketorp. So she was sent out to excavate here. This is a very interesting story. There might be some published on that as well, because there were a lot of males excavating in Eketorp. No matter what, this is the interpretation from the LiDAR results. So this is the house where she was excavating, and we did complement it with geochemical surveys. So we decided we should excavate here in another, because this area was completely destroyed by the modern or historic farm. And she found glass items in her house. And when we started to excavate, we were sort of interested to know in what order were these circles built. Was it sold at the first one, then the second, and then the third? And then we realized that when we demounting the wall here and wall here, we could see that it was obvious that the middle circle was built first, and then the other two was added on, but we don't have any dating for when they were added on. We're now trying to do a lot of OSL datings from these forts to see if we can get any resolution in when the houses and the walls were erected. So this is the remain. These are the remains, and on this picture you can see that these limestone lime slab stones have different colors. These are reddish, these are gray, and these are reddish. So this is the street outside the house, and this is the inner house, and then there's another house, and we can see by the way the walls were attached that this inner house was built first, close to the wall, and then they have attached this, and this was attached later on, and a different house. So it's kind of nice, and you can see that. And this is the house excavated by Birgitta Skarin Flytman in the northern circle, and you can see that they're very similar in the way the walls are bending out. And there were some nice finds, silvering, and important things that we found was that in this inner house, we found pigments on stones. And we know that in Haitaby, in Hedeby, the Viking Age houses had white pigment on the inside of the walls. And here we could see there were lots of red and yellow pigments on stones, and it was ochre, and they had animal binding to these pigments. And what else? There was a threshold stone that you had to climb over, and the first stone you stepped on had a fossil, what they call now, Anders, you have to help me, what's it called?
An octopus.
Oh, the inner shell of an octopus, this long, so it was kind of this, orthoceratid. So when you stepped into that house, it was obvious you were stepping on that orthoceratid. I mean, you couldn't miss it. And this area of the house was stone paved, and the inner part was not stone paved. There was a big hearth in the middle here. In this corner, we found a talus bone, the stragulus, you know, that they use for game pieces, but for ritual function. So this house was extremely special, I would say, and it was built in red lime stone. There were not much found outside here. We don't even think that this house might have had a roof. It might not have been a proper house. It was just walls. This house had a roof, probably made also of limestone, because when we got down into the layers, there were very strange formation of these limestones. And we thought that this was a floor, but then when we started to lift, there were culture layers beneath it, and then we came down to the proper layer of the floor, which was very neatly laid out. Next fort we started to excavate was Borbyborg, the half circle. And the interesting thing here is that we had very, very good georeflections. So we knew exactly where to excavate. we want to excavate here, where this medieval house touches upon the migration period house. And that we did. But it didn't turn out to be a medieval house. There were actually 2 migration period houses. So you can see it's exactly looks like that. And you can see how these houses are built very neatly. And we found a lot of cereal grains. We found a lot of fish bones in this area, a lot of jaws from pig outside here, and some beads. We found nice ceramic. We found a glass sherd from a Snattemo goblet that dates this house to the migration period. But we also had a lot of medieval finds in the upper layer. This fort has been plowed up until the 20th century, and they had grown potatoes in this fort. And when they were harvesting the potatoes, they found solidi up in this area, and it's been metal surveyed. So they thought that they found everything in this fort, but when we were excavating, they hadn't. So the next, so that was during the spring. During the fall, we wanted to excavate here because there was so dark reflections so we thought that this might be the medieval house. It turned out to be another migration period house, and it looked like this. You see the neat walls. And when we were excavating further down, it turned out that there were Roman Iron Age burials in this area. So the fort had been built upon Roman Iron Age cemetery. And when we continued down, even further down, we came into Mesolithic layers, so there were a lot of Mesolithic flint. So it's obvious that these sites where the forts have been built have been used over and over and over again. So they must have some special meaning, particularly this one, Borbyborg, that is situated on this escarpment, and it looks out over the most fertile land you can find in Sweden, Mörbylångadalen. So it's a matter, do you want to be seen or do you want to see? These are some of the finds that we found. This is clearly medieval, and this is also interesting because it's seal bone. And there are a lot of cemeteries surrounding this fort, and some of the cemeteries, some of the skeletons that have been buried there have their heads put on inte alger, tång.
Okay.
Hucus, yeah, from the sea. So when we look at the archaeobotanical date from this is from Eketorp and Treby. You can see that we had several phases in Eketorp. We had 1, 2, and 3 into the Mendel period here, right? And in Treby so far, we only have migration period datings. We also look into I know this is a terrible slide, but it's just to give you an overview of what we're doing. We're doing a lot of archaeobotanical analysis. So we looked into all the archaeobotanical finds that are on Öland collected so far, and looked at before overlapping 536 and after 536 in northern and southern Öland, and comparing the forts and the settlements. And what we can see, what you can't see in this picture, is that there are differences. So in the north, they have coped with this climatic event different compared to the south. So the diversity in species that they were growing in the north is higher than in the south. So they had to change. And also it's interesting because they have more cereals that are sensitive for a colder, wetter climate. So in that respect, people up north on northern Öland coped better with this climatic event than in south of Öland. When we look at the osteology, the human osteology, we already talked about Sandbyborg, where there's a large number of human remains. A massacre obviously took place there, and we tend to think that this is a unique happening in the forts. But we also found human bones in Treby, albeit without any trauma. Eketorp, lot of human bones, several with evidence of trauma. So it might be that Sandbyborg is not a unique event, the massacre. And also in Löt, we have human bones, and we will excavate in this fall. We will excavate in Löt to try to find more human remains if possible. We find a lot of sheep, cattle, pig, horses, and fish. And according to our animal osteologist, Laszlo Bartosiewicz, piglets need to be have support foddering during winter in order to make it over the winter in these areas. So what we're looking into now is to look at starch in pig teeth to see if we can find any evidence of cereals in their fodder. We have surprisingly little fish. In some forts we have lots of fish bones, in others very little, so it varies over the island. Interestingly, we have a lot of sacrificial animals from this bog, Skedemosse, mainly horses, but also humans sacrifices. And we can see that there is a difference before and after the climatic event in what they were offering and et cetera, et cetera. So there is obviously something going on in terms of rituals as well, before and after this event. We look at hollow ways and how they connect the different forts across the island. This is in Fridberga, for instance, and it's quite obvious in this landscape. You can see these hollow ways. We also trying to identify landing places, and this is what Sven Kalming is doing there, using place names. And you can see here in historical records that the paintings or drawings of runestones. Now this is a period prior to our period is prior to the runestones, but this is just an example of how you can use it, where he's looked into the sailing routes into Birka, and you can see beacons, etc., and names connected to beacons, etc. And this will be applied to Öland as well. And I'm just going to show you from our excavation. We had this spring in Vedbyborg, the northernmost fort, where the wall looks very different from the other forts. This fort was completely destroyed by farming. There was absolutely nothing left. We thought we had a very nice georadar reflection from a house, but it turned out to be large lumps of clay, because we're now down into the glacial geology of this island. So here is a lot of sand, and on top of post-glacial clay. And these clay lumps were randomly then put into a pattern that looked like a house. So what we did then was that we excavated closer to the wall of the fort, where the wall had fallen down and covered the soil, so the farmer could not get to the bottom layers of this fort. And when we lifted all these rocks, we found a floor layer also with these red limestones. And in this area, they have to go several kilometers to the coast to find these limestones, slabs. But we also did metal detecting survey over the whole area. So we find this little man, which is a rather it's not common to find in Sweden. We only have five of this before, and they all from Gotland. It's a denarius, and it's minted for Didius Julianus, who was emperor 193 for 66 days. He bought himself the empire. He paid 23,000 sesterces per soldier for them to elect him emperor. After 66 days, they beheaded him, and then they melted a lot of these silver denarius. So there are actually very few out there, and now one of them was found in Öland, and you can see it's extremely worn. So even though it was minted in 193, the common knowledge is that they were actually put down into the soil in Scandinavia around 400, 600. And it might also be later. We also have another metal detector find. It's a button thing that is also found in Sandbyborg, for instance, that is also dating this site to the migration period. So the conclusions then that we have so far is that, I mean, we are only 3.5 years into this project, which is an 8-year project. But we have information on diet of some of the humans found. We are mainly had to go through more of the cemetery material from the cemeteries. We have done all the soil chemistry that we're supposed to do. We are excavating 1 or 2 forts, or I mean, we don't excavate the total. We take up maybe 1% of the whole surface. But so we will probably go through all the forts, and we have information on isotopes from the environment. We know that they were fertilizing their soils. We have archaeobotanical results. We have osteology coming up. We do radiocarbon all these, and we have done later surveys of all the forts, and geophysical surveys are all done. We are also now performing pollen coring in some of the wetlands on Öland, where we're in collaboration with the Center for Paleogenetics. We'll do some sedimentary DNA analysis because this Alvar landscape that is on the southern part of Öland is not natural, and no one really knows exactly when it starts. It could be that it is also in connection to the migration period events. We don't know, but it would be nice to be able to date it. And based on that, then we will know the demography of this island. And I should also say that the migration period looks very different in different parts of Sweden. The areas mainly affected by during the migration period are the areas where they are heavily reliant on farming. If you go up to northern Sweden, we don't see this at all. It's rather an expansion because people are not dependent on agriculture. They are more into fishing and hunting. So there's an expansion in northern Sweden, whereas there's a retraction in the areas where they are reliant on farming. And then we will also be able, of course, to look more into the mobility, who are coming into Öland and who are disappearing, etc. So this is what we are at right now. So when we were applying for this program, we tried to argue that that archaeology is a science in the humanities with a long-term perspective, and as such is well equipped to study crisis, and that we actually can contribute to how we can handle present and future crises, because the conflicts we see during the migration period we see today, the climate crisis we see today, but much more with a much more impact, of course, but and then also the diseases. In this case, this is, of course, COVID. So I would like to thank you for your attention. And this is a picture from the excavation in Borbyborg. And here you can see Lena on this, for instance, for those of you who know her. So by that, I'd say thank you.